Welcome to Everything Explained. Today's big question is a big one. What if the Roman Empire never collapsed? Not a sci-fi fantasy, but a way to explore how long institutions last, how cultures blend, and what power looks like when it's resilient rather than brittle. If Rome had kept its grip from Britannia to the sands of Egypt and beyond, the echo of its laws, roads, and ways of ruling would still be shaping our world. In this episode, we'll map out a plausible version of history, point to real-world mechanisms that could keep an empire whole, and imagine how daily life, technology, and global relations might feel very different, yet still recognizably Roman in spirit. First, political continuity. Rome's long life would depend on a clever balance between central power and provincial autonomy. A never-collapsing empire would need reforms not as dramatic as a revolution, but enough to avoid grinding stagnation. It might settle into a constitutional framework where the emperor is at the top, but the day-to-day business is run by a parliament or a council representing the provinces. Governors would manage regions with earned legitimacy, not just hereditary privilege. The army would shift from a border defense force constantly marching against invaders, to a stabilizing institution that secures borders, maintains infrastructure, and upholds the rule of law. You would see a civil service that rewards competence, not just loyalty, with a system of promotions, audits, and clear budgets. Picture a federation that borrows the best parts of a republic's transparency and a monarchy's unity. It would still clash with elites who want more advantage, and with frontier people seeking greater voice, but steady reform, not catastrophe, keeps it intact. Second, economy and infrastructure. Rome's genius lay in turning things people used every day, roads, ports, rules about property, into something bigger. A Europe to Africa empire that never fell would keep that habit, and over centuries it could become a single market with predictable rules, a common currency, and a reliable credit system. The infrastructure would be the backbone of a truly global economy, roads threading through farms and cities, harbors that welcome ships from every province, and a postal network that allowed ideas to travel as fast as orders. Tax collection would be formalized, with audits and budgets that showed what the state spent and what citizens could expect in return. You'd see a thriving crafts scene and manufacturing that borrowed from provinces with different talents, just as a modern country benefits from regional strengths. There would still be tension, the powerful resenting taxes, the provinces demanding more autonomy, merchants pushing for quicker permits, but the center would have the tools to negotiate and keep the system from buckling under pressure. Third, culture, language, and religion. Latin would remain the official language, a shared plumbing system that makes administration and education traceable across the entire realm. Over centuries, regional dialects would still split and diversify, but the empire would make sure they stay mutually intelligible through education and standardized law. In everyday life you'd hear Latin in courts and schools, local tongues in markets and neighborhoods, and perhaps a lingua franca that grows from commerce and travel. The result would be a multilingual yet cohesive culture, with literature that travels through provinces and gets updated by writers from different corners. On religion, the empire could favor a form of Christianity closely tied to civic life, yet tolerate native rituals and local beliefs as long as they kept peace. The Renaissance, if it happens, might originate inside the imperial system, a gradual reawakening sparked by scholars who can circulate ideas across vast distances without being cut off by war. Fourth, science and exploration. A durable empire would treat science as a public good, funding engineers, geographers, doctors, and mathematicians across provinces. The common schools would teach practical arts as well as liberal learning, so a craftsman in Aurelian Spain could access the same core ideas as a scholar in Antioch. Because knowledge travels faster on a connected road system, discoveries would spread quickly, and collaboration would cross borders rather than be a risky enterprise for a single nation. The empire would preserve classical texts yet encourage new experiments in medicine, agriculture, and engineering. You'd get more ambitious projects like large coastal surveys, improved agriculture through irrigation networks, and safer navigation for ships. In peacetime, the empire would rival modern research centers. In wartime, it would mobilize its professors and artisans to solve urgent problems, blurring the line between scholar and soldier. Fifth, the global stage. If the empire stayed intact, its reach would extend not like dying empires that splinter, but like a living organism that grows more slowly yet more steadily. You'd see provinces across Europe, Africa, and Asia trading, not as separate colonies, but as parts of one system, sharing ports, laws, and standards of measurement. The New World would enter the empire's orbit as a beneficiary province, with settlers, missionaries, and merchants following imperial routes. There would be conflicts, competition for land, for resources, for prestige, but they would be managed through imperial diplomacy and a shared sense of identity rather than through a patchwork of rival states. The result would be a cultural mosaic with common roots, Roman law at the base, a Latin-based scholarly language, and a sense that citizenship is an earned, multi-generational bond, rather than a bundle of regional loyalties. In sum, life today would feel both familiar and strange in just the right ways. A continuous Rome would be powerful and costly, innovative and cautious at once. It would not be a perfect utopia, and it wouldn't be unchanged. It would be a living organism that learns to grow with its limits. The question isn't simply whether Rome could have lasted. It's what kind of world such a lasting Rome would create for all of us. So here's the closing thought. Rome's long echo invites us to ask not how to repeat history, but how to shape a future that lives up to our best ideas.